All right. Welcome, everybody. My name is Trevor Miller. Thanks for coming to this, the first Ambio webinar that we've ever put together. And I'm excited to do this. We're at a phase with Ambio where, honestly, we set up our business. And when we started, we didn't have to do very much marketing because we have this incredible relationship with the nonprofit Vets Incorporated and Amber and Marcus Capone. And many of you on this call will know them. But for that first year or so, that was essentially how people found us. And we worked with mostly veterans. And then I did a little podcast with at the time, maybe relatively unknown podcaster, maybe not Sean Ryan, but Sean Ryan has since, in recent weeks, had the #1 podcast position on Spotify because of his appearance on Joe Rogan. So congrats to Sean Ryan. But that was basically our one other marketing tool that we've used. And now we're very happy to have almost doubled the number of beds that we have at Ambio. And so one of our primary goals through all of this was to make everything safe. And then once we were able to really assure safety, to really scale things up. So we're at a point now where we have 4 houses operating, and we've been able to scale things up. And now I feel like, kind of for the first time in my life as an ibogaine provider, it's really time to be a bit more forward facing about what we're doing and really get the word out there a little bit more, and share the incredible products and services that we have here, because they really are changing lives, and more and more people will be able to access them now. So we're super excited about that. So I just wanted to kind of just provide this webinar to give some general information about what we do, how we do it, and then share some incredible testimonials of some people that have been through. So thanks to those people who have shown up. So I'll introduce myself very quickly before I get into this slideshow that I prepared. But my name is Trevor Miller. I am a co-founder of Ambio Life Sciences. I have been providing ibogaine professionally since 2012. I was able to provide ibogaine legally in Canada, where I'm from 2012 through until 2017. And then Health Canada changed the regulatory status of ibogaine, so I haven't been able to work with it there since. But through that work, I was introduced to Amber and Marcus Capone, who started the nonprofit Vets Incorporated. And through that introduction, was able to, and I'll get more into the story of the formation of Ambio soon, but essentially set up this incredible company with some incredible business partners, which has now allowed me to, allowed us to really service way more people than I ever thought we'd be able to help out with ibogaine. So super exciting. But let me do this slideshow here. All right, welcome to this Ambio webinar. So what I'll run through this week is a brief introduction, which I've already done. I want to share some historical context on psychedelic therapy and psychedelics in general. Speak about iboga specifically and the ibogaine molecule that comes from that, the Bwiti tradition that has been carrying the torch on this medicine for centuries. And we've got some special guests, and I'll leave it open for questions as well. But what is a psychedelic? So the word psychedelic actually comes from 2 words, both Greek. First, psyche. And psyche, if you look in the Oxford English Dictionary, the first definition for psyche is actually the soul. The next one is the mind. So psyche meaning the soul or the mind. And then the delic comes from delos, which means to make manifest. So psychedelic technically means mind or soul manifesting. And while the word psychedelic has a lot of baggage, and we'll speak about why that baggage is there, I think it's an appropriate word. And there was actually I was told by some people who were there, as the psychedelic renaissance, as it's called, as it was starting to unfold, there were some of the OGs in the psychedelic world, guys like Rick Doblin, um, Dennis McKenna, a bunch of people were at the Esalen Institute, and they were looking for the word. Like as we're trying to mainstream psychedelics, what's the best word to use? And they talked about entheogen was a potential. That means to bring forth the divine within. Psychomimetic was one of the early words for psychedelic, and they fell back to psychedelic because the word is actually perfect. It means what it means, and that is definitely at least what psychedelics seem to be doing, is manifesting the mind at least. So a English doctor working out of Canada, working out of Weyburn, Saskatchewan, where they were doing tons of psychedelic research, he coined the term psychedelic, and it was him and Aldous Huxley, the famous author of Brave New World. um, Aldous Huxley and Humphrey Osmond were looking for the right word for this substance. And when Humphrey Osmond suggested psychedelic to um, Aldous Huxley, he had this little poem: to fathom hell or soar angelic, just take a pinch of psychedelic. So that's where the word comes from. I think it's a great word. It does have a lot of baggage though, so let's dig into where that baggage came from. But some considerations when doing psychedelic therapy is there's three primary considerations. Number one is the dose. You want to make sure that you get the dose correctly. But then the other two that are often talked about is the set and the setting. The set is the mindset of the person taking the psychedelic. So examples of set might be coming to a place like Ambio. Or pardon me, your set, pardon me, is your mindset. So your mindset might be, I want to party. I'm at this concert. I'm at this festival. I want to take a substance and have some fun with it. And the mindset might be, I want to do some deep healing. I want to um, figure out how to be a better human being. Those are a couple different examples of the set. But the set also includes the historical context. So many people, so many of the people that we work with have never taken a psychedelic before. And psychedelics have so much baggage. So it's important to consider that when going into it. And we do our best to kind of put people at ease with the idea of doing a psychedelic. The setting is the other place. So the setting might be the concert, might be the festival, might be your living room, might be in the forest with some friends. The setting might be a place like Ambio, and we try and make it feel super safe and comfortable when you come in to do psychedelic therapy with us. But I think it's also important to recognize that there's a massive historical use of psychedelics. So psychedelics did not just appear on the scene in the early mid 60s and it was something that hippies invented. It's not at all like that. There's an ancient tradition of using ayahuasca in the Amazon. Um, Shamans in the jungle. UDV is a church that can legally operate with ayahuasca. The Santo Daime is a church in the States, again, that can legally operate with ayahuasca. The Huichol Aboriginal use of peyote in Mexico here. Curanderos would use psilocybin mushrooms in Mexico. Maria Sabina is a famous example of a curandera who used psilocybin here in Mexico. And the Siberian use of Amanita muscaria was another traditional use of a psychedelic. That mushroom down at the bottom left there, that's often called the Santa Claus mushroom. And there's some pretty compelling evidence that even the Santa Claus myth grew out of the Siberian shamans who would deliver these mushrooms around the winter solstice time. And because they were snowed in, he would have to go down through a chimney. So if you're interested in the mythological, or pardon me, the anthropological background of Santa Claus, you can do some pretty cool Google research on that. And then the Bwiti tradition that grew out of the use of iboga in central West Africa. Um, we'll go into the Bwiti use of psychedelics a bit more in a minute. But Western culture also has a historical use of psychedelics. Greek culture had something called the Mysteries of Eleusis. And every Greek citizen needed to at least once take the road to Eleusis and participate in the Mysteries of Eleusis. And it was the most important thing in Greek culture, but it was kind of like Fight Club. You couldn't speak about it, you couldn't write about it. So there is not a lot of written history on Eleusis. There's now a lot of archaeological history. This book's incredible about it. But there is now pretty conclusive evidence that the kykeon, which was the potion that the Greeks were taking at Eleusis, contained ergotamine, and ergotamine comes from ergot, which is a mold, a fungus that grows on wheat, and it's actually where LSD comes from as well. So it seems as though they were taking some kind of a psychedelic potion at this initiation. And, you know, the Greeks created so much of what we have in modern culture as far as our structures, like universities, the way we govern ourselves, a lot of our medicine. And it is my hypothesis that as the Greeks were building these solid structures, these ways of doing things, I don't think the Greeks ever intended the psychedelic experience to be separated from that. And I think that maybe a lot of the problems we see in society come from the fact that we kind of separated those things from each other where they were probably meant to stick together. But the Romans conquered the Greeks and they eliminated the mysteries of Eleusis. They took some stuff from their culture and eliminated other stuff, including the mysteries of Eleusis. So Western culture has a history of psychedelics as well that goes very deep. But I think it's so important to see that psychedelics in history were pro-social. These were things that communities did together to make their societies better. They came together for healing. They came together for celebration of transitions, like initiating an adolescent into adulthood. Aldous Huxley, he wrote the book Brave New World, which was his dystopian view of the future. And he also wrote a book called The Island, which was his more utopian view of how society could be. And in that book, everybody grew up in society knowing that on this island, knowing that when they turned 14 years old, they were going to go on a rock climbing trip and take the moksha medicine, moksha meaning liberation. And it was a mushroom trip. And I think, you know, the Bwiti culture, they have a history of initiating like this, but so many of these cultures historically would use these powerful substances to help initiate people into adulthood. There was a clear line in the sand before this and after this. And after this, you were a part of society and needed to be responsible like that. And I really think we're missing that in our world. Connecting to family and culture and exploring spirituality. So bottom line here is psychedelics prior to the mid-1960s were considered very pro-social. They were good for society. And, you know, even before the things were outlawed in the mid-1960s, there is a history in Western civilization of LSD being used and psilocybin being used in a clinical setting. So this book here, Psychedelic Psychiatry, LSD from Clinic to Campus by a Canadian historian, Erica Dick, does a really good job outlining all the different research sites that were going on in the late 50s, even into the mid 1960s when LSD was made illegal. But Aldous Huxley, who I've mentioned a couple times here, he wrote this book, The Doors of Perception, after taking mescaline, which Humphrey Osmond provided. And it's a beautiful book. The band The Doors took their name from that book, The Doors of Perception. And Weyburn, Saskatchewan, I already mentioned, but it had a mental health hospital there. They were doing tons of research with LSD, but it was really happening all over. Johns Hopkins, they had the Spring Grove Institute. They were doing a lot of early research with LSD. There were thousands of studies printed about the use of LSD for various ailments. This is a meta-analysis of LSD being used to treat alcoholism. And I know Weyburn, Saskatchewan specifically, they treated 756 people for alcohol use disorder with a more than a 50% success rate. So if you look at AA, if you look at meta-analysis of how successful AA and NA is, it if you're lucky, it has a 10% success rate. So LSD was proving very early on to be very successful for treating LSD. So much so that Bill W., the founder of LSD, or the founder, Albert Hoffman was actually the inventor of LSD. He worked at Sandoz Pharmaceuticals when he did that. But Bill Wilson, the founder of AA, his spiritual conversion that led him to set up AA was actually from a belladonna. He went to a treatment center that used belladonna, which is another psychedelic, and that actually inspired him to create AA, which is very not known. But later on in life, he really wanted to add LSD to the 12 steps, maybe as step 0, because that could help cynical alcoholics achieve the spiritual awakening, which is oh so important to find sobriety using those 12 steps. So, you know, these psychedelics have been found as very useful, very therapeutic for many years. But then in the late 1960s, early 1970s, LSD got banned and psychedelics got banned, and they were for the first time labeled as antisocial. The Nixon administration and the CIA were worried about American youth refusing to fight in Vietnam, and there was just tremendous cultural change. Somebody who was involved in the Nixon administration has come out fairly recently and said, yeah, those conversations around outlawing these substances were largely oriented towards the fact that they needed to control these countercultures. And you can't just arrest a hippie for being a hippie, but you could arrest a hippie, and if you found illegal drugs on them, then you had a reason for locking them up. So there was a lot of political animosity involved in making these substances illegal. But sadly, at the same time, oh, here's some good propaganda around LSD. Girl gives birth to a frog. Doctors blame LSD. LSD fed ape rapes TV actress. Oh man, drop acid, not bombs. So there was a lot of propaganda. The war on drugs was a very successful propaganda campaign, and but the sad thing is while these substances were outlawed for recreational use, they were also outlawed for scientific use. So all of this research just got shut down completely. Incredibly promising compounds, just nope, you can't research them anymore, even though you're showing tremendous safety, you're showing tremendous success. We just need to blanket outlaw all these substances. So essentially, for more than 50 years, these substances, or almost 50 years, these substances were outlawed. The other time science was outlawed was when Copernicus said maybe the sun is the center of our solar system. And that for more than 100 years, you couldn't read books about anything related to that. The church outlawed these things entirely. This is Stanislav Grof. He was born in Czechoslovakia, came to the U.S. and was one of the most prominent LSD researchers. He says LSD is to the study of the mind what the telescope is to astronomy and the microscope is to biology. So I'm speaking a lot about LSD just because it showed such promise, and it was just entirely shut down, and LSD was kind of the primary substance that led to all psychedelics being banned. But then we came into something that has been termed the psychedelic renaissance. So it was actually in the early 2000s, uh, Charles, I can't remember his name, but at Johns Hopkins, it was a researcher at Johns Hopkins. It'll come to me. Roland Griffiths was the first scientist to be re-granted permission to study psilocybin at Johns Hopkins University in the early 2000s. And I'll just show, New York Times started printing about the fact that psychedelics might actually be a good thing, and scientists are studying them again. So thankfully, the psychedelic renaissance started happening, is happening. All of these institutions and many more now have started studying psychedelics. So hopefully the tides are turning and people are really starting to recognize that these substances are incredibly powerful and deserve to be studied. Stanford School of Medicine is there. I will go into and introduce you to somebody who's actually part of a study that we did with Stanford University around the use of ibogaine. So this is the spectrum of the psychedelic mindset. So when we welcome people here, we recognize that some people have never tried a drug before. They're very nervous about the fact that they're doing something like psychedelics, but they're desperate for healing. So we've got from people who fully still believe the propaganda and are very hesitant about being here to the other side of the spectrum here, where people are open to maybe doing ayahuasca or the hippie dancing there at the top right. So iboga and ibogaine, that is the substance we work with here at Ambio, the primary substance that we work with, I would say, that seems to really kind of dig in and do a lot of powerful healing is ibogaine, and ibogaine comes from this plant called iboga. That's a picture of it there. It has a lovely fruit. Apparently the elephants love to eat that fruit, and that helps propagate the iboga in Gabon and Cameroon. And it's actually the root bark that we use. So this is the Bwiti tradition, images of the Bwiti tradition. This is the tradition that grew out of the use of iboga in West Africa. I have not been to Africa. I have not been initiated yet, although I think it is coming up very soon. I feel the calling recently, and I was kind of given the call through somebody who took the medicine, who's the medicine apparently told them it's time for me to go to Gabon. So beautiful images. The Bwiti tradition, they would not call themselves a religion. They would not call themselves a tribe. Some may call it a spiritual tradition, but I have heard that really what the Bwiti consider themselves is the study of life. Bwiti is the study of life, and they use iboga as the sacrament to do that. Here's some images of iboga. So if you were to go to the jungle and take this medicine, it would be this it would be the root bark. It's actually the second layer of root bark. And the mythology around the discovery of the psychoactive effects of the root bark is there was an animal, perhaps a porcupine, perhaps something else, that was eating the root bark. And apparently that is quite common, is animals will be found eating the root bark of iboga. But the hunter killed the porcupine. It was getting cooked up, and a husband and wife ate it. They went on this incredible journey. And then when they came out the other end, they went to the chief of the village and let the chief know that this incredible thing had happened. And apparently that is how humans discovered the psychoactive effects and the healing effects of this medicine. So if you were to go to the jungle, you just have copious amounts of this root bark. You can take that root bark and you can refine it once using a mild acidic solution, and you're left with the brown powder, which is called iboga total alkaloid. That contains the ibogaine molecule, as well as the dozen or so other molecules that are within that plant. And then there's actually a sustainability issue with iboga in Gabon since the Westerners have discovered this. The value of it has gone up tremendously, and it takes about 7 years for the plant to mature to the point where you could harvest uh, root bark from it. So there is another plant called Volcanga africana. This is a slightly blurry picture of that plant, and it contains a molecule that can easily be converted to pure ibogaine. So we use ibogaine HCl. The HCl stands for the hydrochloric acid that is used in the final extraction process. And at Ambio, we have mostly been using pure ibogaine from the Volcanga africana plant, from the sustainable source. We have a provider that both Jonathan, my business partner, and I have been working with for more than a decade. He provides a beautiful medicine. He gives us the lab reports on the purity of it. So if you've been to Ambio, you most likely had pure ibogaine from that from the Volcanga africana plant. So, you know, most of us in the Western world can credit this guy with the fact that we even know what ibogaine is. Howard Lotsoff, there's two pictures of him there. In 1962 in New York City, Howard was a heroin user. He was dependent on heroin, but he had a chemist buddy who knew that Howard was interested in interesting molecules. And he managed to procure some ibogaine. And he said, I think you might be interested in this ibogaine. You should give it a shot. So he took ibogaine, didn't know what he was getting into, went on this tremendous journey, and came out the other side and realized, wait a second, I have not wanted heroin the whole time I've been on this, nor do I want it now. So that's when ibogaine's anti-addictive properties were discovered by the Western world. And Howard became a real champion for the medicine, started knocking on a lot of doors to try and get people to pay attention to what he had discovered. He eventually formed the Global Ibogaine Therapy Alliance and created the first draft of the clinical guidelines that started trying to educate people on the use of ibogaine to detox people off of substances. This image here is from the cover of the now updated clinical guidelines. Jonathan Dickinson, my business partner, currently was the lead author on these clinical guidelines when he was the chair of the board for, or pardon me, the executive director for the Ibogaine Therapy Alliance. And I don't know if you recognize that guy on the cover, but they needed to do a photo shoot for some stock photos about ibogaine, and that was my clinic. They came to my clinic in Vancouver to shoot those photos, and they needed somebody who would pose for as the patient. So that's actually me right there with that eye mask on. I'm the cover star for the detox. And then Ambio Life Sciences was formed in, we came together in 2021 to essentially service veterans. So this is a screenshot of the website for vetsolutions.org, the nonprofit founded by Amber and Marcus Capone. Marcus is a former Navy SEAL. He, after retirement, was not right, and they tried everything to try and figure out how to help him. Nothing seemed to work until in this last ditch effort, they heard about ibogaine. Marcus came to Mexico to take ibogaine, and everything changed. Amber knew right away, as soon as he walked in the door after that treatment, that she had her husband back. And they started this nonprofit, which has now sent approximately 1,000 US Special Forces veterans down for this treatment. Amber, Marcus, and I were introduced to each other, and Amber, from that point forward, started reaching out to see if there might be a way for us to work together. They were looking for another ibogaine provider to work with. So the three of us came together, Jonathan, Jose, and I. This is we have not been on the cover of Time magazine. This is a joke. I said to our branding and marketing team that when we were visioning what could we make Ambio one day, I'm like, well, we would know we'd made it if we ended up on the cover of Time magazine one day. So one of our colleagues put this together for us, but that's Jose in the middle, Jonathan on the right there, and yeah, Jonathan and I were working together on another project. I happened to mention this veterans group that was keen to work with me. He called me back a week later with Jose in the car and said, why don't you move to Tijuana? So we did do that. We set up Ambio Life Sciences over the course. We weren't instantly Ambio Life Sciences. We had another name for a while, but then we brought everything together and created this beautiful company together. And we there's many things that ibogaine is good for. The primary thing that ibogaine was discovered, as I just explained in the Western world, is ibogaine is very good at detoxing people and interrupting addictions. So the detox program works incredibly well for opioids, for people who are hooked physically to opiates and opioids, fentanyl. Ibogaine is incredibly good at helping people off those substances. It's a very good negative pattern interrupter, and it works so well for opioids because really nothing does. You can take ibogaine and virtually overnight end a heroin dependence without the painful withdrawals. It also works very good for stimulant use like cocaine, methamphetamines. There's different protocols for these, but it's very effective for all of them. It's very good for alcohol use disorder as well. The thing with alcohol is one of the only substances that the withdrawal has the potential to kill you. So ibogaine's not good for people in the DTs. You need to safely detox from alcohol prior to taking ibogaine. So we invite people to do that in a medically supported way prior to coming into us. We ask that people avoid alcohol for at least a week prior to arrival here. But if that's not possible, people can also come here, and we've got our detox facility where we can help people come off alcohol safely before we give them ibogaine on site as well. So we've got one house that is completely dedicated to detoxing people. We have up to 6 beds at that facility, a beautiful facility, and that's definitely one kind of niche that we've got. The other thing that ibogaine seems to be very good for is something we're calling regeneration. So we've finished a study with Stanford University, which I've mentioned, and I'll go into here next. But people got brain scans before and after ibogaine, and ibogaine seems to be actually somewhat, in some people, to some degree, reversing traumatic brain injury. So traumatic brain injury basically shows up as a dark spot in a brain scan where there is no blood flow. And after ibogaine, there seems to be more blood flow into the brain. So other aspects of regeneration is ibogaine seems to be working very well to treat multiple sclerosis, MS. It seems to be working very well to treat Parkinson's disease. And it seems to be helping with so many mental health issues, whether that's depression, anxiety, lack of purpose, lack of meaning, traumatic brain injury and the traumatic brain injury related symptoms, whether that's lack of focus, memory issues, lack of clarity, seems to help with attention deficit disorder type symptoms as well. OCD, I've seen it help with obsessive compulsive disorder. So there's just so much that ibogaine seems to be helping with in the regeneration side of things. This is a screenshot of the Stanford study. This was a study, 30 Special Forces veterans went to Stanford prior to coming here. They got brain scans, they got a battery of other tests. Then they came here just for ibogaine. Then they went immediately back to Stanford for more brain scans, for more tests, and then a lot of them did a month follow-up as well. So this was published in the journal Nature Medicine one of the top 5 medical journals. So it was a very big deal. But this is the graph from that paper that was published. And there has not been an imaging study published yet, but that will come. But what was published is these all measure. So this first scale is the disability scale. So disability went from very high down to, in a lot of these, this is 30 lines here. So this is actually the 30 patients. So disability went from very high down to next to nothing in a lot of these guys. The disability scores, a lot of these guys don't even qualify as having any kind of a disability in the way that they measure them. The CAPS is the PTSD scores. So PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, the way they measure that with the tests that they do, again, went from almost off the scale on some of these guys down to next to nothing. And even the 1 month follow-up got better. And look, it's not perfect. There was one patient that while his disability scores didn't, they fared well, his PTSD still stayed up there. This is the anxiety scores and the depression scores. So depression and anxiety, again, went from very high in these guys down to next to nothing in these Special Forces veterans. And then the other bucket that we look at here at Ambio is that Ibogaine is very good for optimization as well. What I mean by optimization is Ibogaine is very good at getting people from -10 to 0. It also seems to be very good at getting people from 0 to +10. So I like to do Ibogaine once a year. That is because I work with it and I like to stay kind of in tune with what I'm doing to people basically. But I also do it because I know how great I feel afterwards. You know, I might not be digging into some of the deep healing that I did early on with this substance, but I know, I feel as though most of us know what we need to do in order to make our lives better. But I think that's easier said than done for many of us, myself included. For example, the last time I did Ibogaine, I have this wonderful yoga routine that I've been trained on. And in periods of my life, I've been very good at doing this yoga every single day. But prior to taking Ibogaine the last time, I'd really fallen off that wagon. I wasn't very good at doing that. So one of my intents going into Ibogaine the last time was I want to get better at my yoga practice. And it's been incredible. I've been able to keep it up. It's very good at helping you eliminate negative patterns from your life, but and then once you get rid of those negative patterns, there's going to be a vacuum there. It's also very good at helping you implement positive habits and positive patterns. So that's what we do in some of the coaching as people are coming in is, all right, you want to get rid of all this crap. You want to get rid of your anger. What are you going to fill that void with? What are you going to aim towards after you do Ibogaine? And I think that's really the optimization component of it. We've got these incredible coaches that we work with. This is, everybody gets coaching prior to coming in here. And those are some of the coaches. Some of the coaches are on this call. So thank you to all of our coaches. But when you come into Ambio, you receive coaching prior to arrival. You get at least 2 coaching sessions prior to arrival. You get at least 2 coaching sessions after. We include 4 coaching sessions in the purchase price. And it's so important. These coaches are critical in helping you prepare in order to get that mindset ready for what you're going to experience when you come down to Ambio. And then I'm going to just run through the schedule on the 5-day program, but the detox program is very similar. Everything that you see here is included in the detox program as well. It's just spread out over more days because people often need to come down here a little bit longer if they're detoxing. But we're very close to San Diego, so very convenient for most Americans to get to San Diego. We pick everybody up near the airport at about 10:30 on that first day. They arrive to the facilities very quickly thereafter. It's very easy to get to our facilities, which are located just south of Tijuana from San Diego. And Tijuana's got a bit of a reputation, and I think a lot of people when they're coming in, they're concerned about that reputation. But I think to the person, once you do arrive at the facilities, you feel incredibly safe. We have beautiful facilities in very secure locations. So we do a welcome circle upon arrival to get to know each other a little bit and start preparing people for the Ibogaine journey. We give lunch. The food's incredible. Our chefs are top notch, world class. Should be Michelin star chefs, I think. The food's so good here. Then we'll do an EKG upon arrival. We ask for an EKG before arrival as well. So you'll get an EKG stateside. Send us a copy of that. But we like to have something to compare our in-house one to. So we do EKGs upon arrival as well. And then everyone will leave for the Temazcal. The Temazcal is a traditional Mexican sweat lodge. Beautiful experience. We found that's a great way to do some bonding and to kick off the week. Then people get back for dinner. We do more preparation during dinner. Then we do actually a medical intake after dinner, as well as rehydration IVs. Get some rest that night. The next day, some blood work in the morning, followed by breakfast, followed by breath work. Breath is like this untapped ally that it's very good to get reacquainted with prior to doing something like Ibogaine. Another group circle in preparation, some free time into lunch, into a documentary, some massage in the afternoon. We also do some one-on-one therapeutic support with our on-site host prior to Ibogaine in the afternoon there. Then we'll do a fire circle into the Ibogaine experience itself, which the Ibogaine is done in a room we call the treatment room. Everybody gets their own mattress. We bring in groups of up to 6 people right now. Everybody gets their own mattress. Everybody's hooked up to a heart monitor through that process. And really, the Ibogaine experience is it's really hard to put into words, but it is described as oniric, which means as related to dreams. So it can be almost like a lucid dream type experience that you're going through. Some people have visions. A lot of people don't have visions, but you don't need visions in order for the Ibogaine experience to work for you. The next day is known as the gray day. Everybody feels a little bit rough after Ibogaine, so it's just a long day of rest and recovery, eating as you can. We have a Reiki practitioner that comes in. People find that super helpful. The next day, into some yoga and meditation after some breakfast. We'll do a group circle to help debrief after the Ibogaine experience, and then into working with the other compound, which I'm not going to get into too much, but it's called 5-MeO-DMT, 5-methoxy-dimethyltryptamine. It's a shorter experience. I like to say that Ibogaine sandblasts you from the inside out, and then 5-MeO polishes you from there. So it's another important part of the protocol. It can take some time to recover from Ibogaine, and the 5-MeO-DMT experience seems to help people recover a lot quicker from the Ibogaine experience. We'll serve some tacos on that last night, throw on another documentary, and then you'll get picked up the next morning. So the cost for what we provide down here, which thankfully we do operate in Mexico here, so we can keep this fairly affordable compared to what it would cost if we were operating in the States. But the detox can last anywhere from 7 to 21 days. That's the price range there. The regeneration and optimization programs, the 5-day psychospiritual programs, we call them, is $78.50 for civilians. We provide a special rate for veterans and first responders. And if you mention this webinar up until October 31st, we will give you $1,000 off of either of those prices. So there's the offer. If you are interested in coming, feel free to mention the webinar. So what's some action that you can take? I think some action that you can take is, for one, there's an incredible movie that's coming out. So make sure you check out this movie. It's called In Waves and War. And it follows these three incredible uh, former Navy SEALs through a healing journey, through their time at Ambio. And it's animated. I've seen a copy of this movie and it's a beautiful movie. So it's going to be a very big deal. So share that as you can. I would definitely check out the Ambio podcast. We have a new episode coming out very soon with the lone survivor, Marcus Luttrell. We just laid down that podcast episode yesterday. So check out the Ambio podcast, share that if you don't mind. And I would check out some of the other incredible podcasts that talk about Ambio and the Ibogaine experience. Sean Ryan's podcast has some great episodes with DJ Shipley, Marcus Capone, and Amber Capone, Tony Cowden, Sean Ryan's episode himself, where he speaks to his wife about his experience down here, as well as the episode I've done with him. They're all pretty amazing. So it's tough to share this sometimes with people, but maybe sharing a podcast episode on social media and letting people know that this is an interesting topic to you, I think it's going to help get the word out. And I think the word really does need to get out at this point. So testify. I am going to stop sharing my screen here so I can invite some incredible people to step forward and share a few minutes of their experience with us here. So I think I will start with, I mentioned there is a former Navy SEAL on the call here, a gentleman who's a part of the Stanford study. He's got a great story. Craig Cates, are you there? Can you unmute yourself and share your story a little bit?
First off, I want to correct the record. I'm not a gentleman.
You're not a gentleman? I disagree.
Yes, gentlemen. let's not strain the language that far. Yeah, so the Telluride Film Festival and the In Waves of War was an incredible success. It's a very eclectic film festival, and the reception that movie got in Telluride was beyond any that normally happens. And I live right next door to Telluride, so I can tell you that it was off the hook. Definitely worth seeing. My story my vet story as far as TBI goes was interesting. I was one of the guys who I didn't come away from my 27 years of service with Purple Heart. I spent plenty of time in hospitals, but none of it from war injuries, all from stupid injuries. So I felt like I got out okay. It wasn't until after I got out and I was outside of the constant barrage of high octane, high adrenaline community that I realized that something was not right. And that when I realized something wasn't right, that's when I found vets. Marcus being a former teammate, I trusted vets. One of those guys you talked about, never considered doing drugs. It just wasn't on my radar. It wasn't one of the things that I would do. I literally went to Stanford thinking they're going to kick me out. I went at the behest of my wife, God bless her, and I thought, this is just as good as it gets. And so when I got to Stanford, they said, nah, idiot, you're the poster child of traumatic brain injury. So yeah, welcome to the club. I can't describe how different I felt from pre to post. And to dispel any myths about this being a club drug or something anybody would do, it was hell on earth. It was 20 hours of pure hell for me. I remember you looking at me a couple hours in saying, maybe we'll give you a little booster. And I was like, okay, yeah, let's get a booster in. And then I walked around a little bit. I'm like, no booster. This rocket's lit. And so 20 hours later, I was kind of dragging myself out of it going, wow, that was rough. but it literally felt at one point like something clicked in my head, like I had had a Charlie horse for the last 20 years in my brain, and it was relaxed for the first time. I can't describe it any other way. I know that sounds weird, and you're not supposed to feel things inside your brain, but that's what I felt. And I didn't smell any colors. I didn't taste any sounds. Didn't ride any rainbows. It was just an extraordinarily unique experience and a lot of work. But I would stress also, you said that you talked about your therapist for integration. I would stress that, you know, we're life porous, right? We don't everything that happens to us gets through our skin, whether we admit it or not. So if you think that this stuff is an easy button, it's anything but easy. And if you treat it frivolously, you'll get zero return. If you go right back to the same patterns you used to have, you'll have wasted an opportunity. So breaking out of your patterns and getting outside of previous cycles is incredibly important. And there's so much that this can do for a person suffering, whether it's traumatic brain injury or PTS. The social system symptoms of both of those are similar. And so breaking out of those requires an outside support network. And I can't stress that enough, but absolutely an amazing experience. So much so I went back about 18 months later.
And sent most of your family.
Yes, yes, and
Yeah.
sent a good portion of my family.
Craig's the only guy. Craig said, I'm losing my shirt paying for these EKGs. I'm thinking of just buying an EKG machine.
I've got one, yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Craig. It's been a real honor to get to know you over these years and watch your journey and see you in Denver. It was great hanging out with you there. So thank you so much for sharing your story. And I think there's Berkeley is doing a podcast on you or something like that that's coming out soon as well. I think I spoke to a dude about that.
Yeah, there's a podcast, actually a couple coming out. One here in the States, Curtis Fox is the guy that I worked with there, and then there's one in the works over in UK.
Awesome.
Your work is being discovered in the UK, and the thing is, we've all got veterans that have very similar challenges, and for sure, we all have substance abuse issues that have challenges, and so UK, US, Canada, Australia, we're all very much in a similar boat on this stuff. So I'm glad to see the work spread.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Craig. I wanted to bring, I've got a couple guys I'll just call regular guys that are going to give testimonies as well. And somebody with that overcame a substance use disorder, and a lovely woman who had a traumatic brain injury. She's going to speak out. But I want to bring out one of those regular guys first. Brandon, are you Brandon Paris? Because there's two Brandons here. So Brandon Paris, is Brandon Paris there? Unmute yourself there, buddy.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you had an incredible transformation, my man. So great seeing you, by the way. Good to see you, buddy. But maybe you could just share a bit of where you were at before and what happened after.
Where I was before and what happened after. Well, I underestimated how lost I was, I think. I mean, I want to make it more about the medicine, not about me, but I had a lifelong amount of trauma that I thought I was past. And the way the medicine found me was unique. it was nothing that I ever would have done on my own. Um, I take it very seriously, especially now. I didn't know what I was getting into at first, but I knew that I just came to a stopping point where, and before I was very stubborn. You know, you couldn't tell me anything. I would never ask for help. I would never admit that I even had any type of problem. I was always a guy that just put on the false front that I kept everything together, but I was falling apart. And when the medicine found me, I couldn't have been more lost. But I just knew that my way of doing things just wasn't working anymore. So I had to decide to go all the way with it. And even the time leading up, like, there was so much in my head trying to stop me, trying to convince me that it was the wrong thing to do. But I just had to push through that. And I was just open. I was just open. I was convinced that it was going to heal me before I even arrived, which I think was a good mindset to have. I had no idea what I was expecting. I was just ready. I just knew that I couldn't do it on my own anymore, which was hard for me to admit. And you know, I thought I was going to be healed overnight. I was devastated when, you know, it put me through some pretty agonizing times. What I needed, and just learning what I've learned since then, and conversing with others who've taken similar journeys or the same journey. Like, it's always what you need. And you know, Trevor says something that I like, and it's absolutely true, that it meets you spiritually where you are. Because at that time I was completely lost, and it found me. I can't, I don't have the words to advocate enough that the medicine is real, that the healing is real, and the power is really inside yourself. And this just helps you show you what you can do and what you're choosing to hang on to and swim in. And I'm just so grateful.
How's
for-
life been since? How has life been different since?
Well, I quit smoking, I quit drinking. Those were just easy side effects. I did get divorced when I came home, but that was absolutely the right thing to do. It was something that I was denying myself. But like you said, it just you always see the right track. You always have all the right answers for someone else. You never know how to fix yourself, or maybe you do know how to fix yourself and you never follow through with it. This really just clears out the weeds and lays the tracks and helps you stay focused on what you already knew that you needed. You just deny yourself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. Anyway, so good to see you, man. Let's catch up again soon. Thanks for doing this. And let's speak to the other Brandon, since I confused the situation with two Brandons here. Brandon came to us to help himself overcome a long-standing dependence on opioids. How you doing, man?
Hey, I'm great, man. Let me put my readers on. When I went down to Ibogaine, excuse me, Ambio, my hair turned gray and I can't see anymore. So,
That's not
so
good.
yeah, now I'm just getting old. Anyway, my name's Brandon. I'm from Central Louisiana. Spent my life in the trucking business with my dad. You don't want to hear all that bullshit. Let's get to the good stuff. So, sandblast. I think you stole that from me, Joe, because I told you and I was like, I think Ibogaine sandblasted me from the inside out. So if you stole it, it's all good. I'm joking. So the Sean Ryan show. Before you guys go down there, watch Trevor's episode, watch Marcus Capone's episode. Very enlightening. On a side note, Trevor was talking about ancient cultures and what they did. Well, actually, in the Holy of Holies, I'm a Christian, um, so in the Old Testament they would burn incense, and they found cannabinoids in it. So that's interesting. And then also, Cary Grant took 50 hits of acid to get off alcohol. That's another side note. So let's get a background, just like everybody else. I really want to speak to the Suboxone guys or any opioid guys. Let's just call it my forte. So anyway, I grew up, got 3 older brothers, played sports, all that good stuff. Life is great. That's what you need to get back to, whether it's growing a garden or anything. I'll get to that point in a minute. So 15 rehabs. Guess what that did? 0. Because you're just a check mark, and they'll put you in a room with a dude that's coming off meth or crack. And my major detox symptom is I have insomnia and running diarrhea, and we'll get to that later. I don't mean to be disgusting, but I'm a plain speaker, and I'm going to speak from the heart to you guys, because if I can get one of you guys or gals to really listen, it changed my life. And my wife's sitting here next to me. She's had her own journey too. So anyway, so yeah, I got notes, but I'm half blown. So anyway, so my dad passed away. We had a trucking business, so I had to find a real job. So I got in a dating website, believe it or not, and I met my lovely wife, and we've been together 7 years, 7 years, and so I'll get to the meaty part with the ibogaine. Of course, don't do what I did. I went down there as a drunk. I mean, I flew into San Diego first class. I was just boozing and like, well, they'll fix me. But I will say this: listen to what they tell you if you're on Subutex. You need to get down to like a quarter or a third a day. I mean, maximum. Because when you get down there, um, I was hesitant, man. I've traveled the world. I don't, but Mexico's a little sketchy, I thought. But Trevor's already said this. You get picked up in an SUV. It's got an ambulance sticker on it, so you going through customs, like that, especially into Mexico. Now on the way out, you need a passport. That's a whole nother story with me not having a passport. But anyway, I don't know if Trevor wanted me to say that, but I said it anyway. So anyway, so you show up, and just like you said, they check your bags, make sure you don't have knives or whatever. Um, Ruby, 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 Ruby. I think about her every day. I love her with all my heart, like a sister. Um, Trevor, I met a couple times. And so let me get to the Iowa game. So, well, let me go back to college. So,
Just to
I was
go
sitting
to
there.
the ibogaine, Brandon. We got to keep this as short
Okay,
as
we'll go to the Iowa
possible.
game.
It's
So,
super hard to get off opiates without ibogaine. What was it
that's
like getting off opiates with ibogaine?
okay, absolutely. So I got to make this one point. So my buddy's chopping coke in college, and he looked at me and I said, "Man, why are you snorting this shit every day?" And he looked at me dead in the eyes, and he said, "You're gonna find something one day you can't put down." And I said, "Not me." So let's go on the Iowa game. So you get down there, and so I had to do the 21-day deal. You have to have a clean drug screen off of Subutex, and you know, you take the medicine. You, like Trevor said, you make a list of what you want to burn, what you want to get rid of in your life, and I want to just go into it with an open mind. Don't be scared to go into Tijuana. Don't. So anyway, my wife's done. So anyway, did the fire ceremony, they said, listen, just let me know when your ears start ringing. So they started ringing. You go upstairs, you put blinders on, and you lay down. You're on a heart monitor. So I really don't want to talk about my trip because everyone has their own experience or journey with it. Mine was pretty gentle. The medicine, I know it sounds all hippy dippy, but the medicine knows what you need. It knows what you need. And I'm not going to bullshit you. The next day, it felt like King Kong stepped on me, and my spine was twisted in a knot. But I was on opioids for 35 years. So, by the way, Subutex, methadone, Suboxone are all made by the Germans. So just, yeah, that's a side issue. So anyway, so the gray day, I wake up, like I said, don't do what I did. Head nurse comes in and wants to give me an Ibogaine booster. And I said, no, because I'm a glutton for punishment. So the Reiki lady came in. She's a wonderful lady. And I ran her out of the room too. Well, the best feeling I had all day was all of a sudden my stomach started to vibrate, hand to God. And this energy wave went from my stomach to my chest, back down to my stomach for about 20 minutes. And had no idea what was going on, had no idea. So the second day, get the booster, I'm back to myself for about 2 hours. So long story short, I had to take a second flood dose. That's up to the staff. It has to do with your body weight. They'll explain all that to you. But the second flood dose was way more gentle. Like I said, my major detox symptoms were extreme diarrhea. Don't be afraid to put a diaper on. I mean, I'm just speaking plainly. That's just what happened to me. So basically what the medicine told me is your body's a temple. Love yourself. It's okay to love yourself. And 5-MeO, 5-MeO DMT is I can't put it into words. It's a stress reliever. It's basically like you're going under anesthetic, under an anesthetic. I'm not going to tell you what Ruby told me, but she tells me that every time I go there, and it sees me. So you basically shake all the negative energy out, and then you get this huge smile on your face. And it says the same thing. Love yourself. It's okay to love yourself.
And how's life been since you left us?
Well,
It's
I
been
mean,
more than a year now.
Yeah, I'm not counting the days, but I was down there on my gray day was actually on my birthday. It's right after July 4th. I mean, it's on the 5th. I mean, I don't give a shit. So yeah, a little bit after that. There's a verse in the Bible how you repulse from sin, and that's how I feel about opioids. Anytime I get nauseous, even thinking of taking opioids. I know believe me, I've got all the connections. If I wanted to have opioids, I could have them in a heartbeat, but it saved my life. Ibogaine saved my life. 5-MeO saved my life. And it's not a rehab. The people down there, when they come in from work, when they switch off, shifts, they hug each other and they say, "Hey, I love you." And they're speaking Spanish, but I get it. They're saying, "I love you." And it's a family down there. And that's
Awesome.
basically pretty much all I have to say.
Cool.
You're missing out if you don't go. My
Thank
wife
you,
and I are
Brandon.
going back in January.
Thank you, Brandon. And your wife's right there.
Yeah,
I love when a spouse vouches for it works.
I went down there more for mental health, and I stopped smoking. And
Nice.
there's a few other things I stopped, like taking as much like pain Tylenol, at Aleve, things like that. I got to where I was taking a whole bunch of that, and the smoking thing was a big thing, me getting off of it. But I did.
And
Right
real quick, mushrooms. I mean, I'm not promoting it. I mean, I know it's illegal in the States, but that does help.
It does help.
Cool. Well, thank you both.
All right, brother.
Wonderful. Great having you. Thanks for speaking up. Thanks for the testimonial.
welcome.
Let's bring Christina Stibbets. She's got an incredible story about Ibogaine helping with TBI. Are you there, Christina? Just take yourself off mute.
I'm here. Hi, Trevor. How are you?
Hi, good. Nice to see you, Chris. I can't wait to hear this.
Well,
Share your story, please.
I wrote it because if I didn't, I probably wouldn't have get it all out. So
All right, go for it.
Okay. Hi, my name is Christina Stibbets. I'm a mother of 3, a grandmother of 5, and I've been married to my incredible husband, Chris, for 28 years. But today I'm here to talk about a journey that forever changed my life, a journey I believe can help bring hope and healing to countless others. On June 11th, 2013, while attending a company event in Baltimore, Maryland, I fell and suffered a traumatic brain injury. I didn't realize at the time how profoundly that single moment would alter the course of my life. I was a successful litigation manager for an insurance company, a career I dedicated my life to for since I was 19 years old. And I was full of goals and aspirations, but in an instant, all that changed. When I fell, I hit my head so hard, I was rushed to shock trauma, and the doctors discovered brain bleeds on the back of my head and told my husband that I may not survive. Thankfully, I did, but surviving was only the beginning. Over the next few days, I experienced more brain bleeds, migraines that lasted for days, and swelling that severed my olfactory nerves, permanently altering my sense of taste and smell. I returned to the hospital and remained there for another week. Yet the worst of it wasn't the physical pain, wasn't just the physical pain, it was emotional and mental torment that came with the right frontal lobe damage that I suffered. And I became trapped in a very dark place, constantly fighting with my thoughts, losing myself in endless loops of fear, suspicion, and depression. I was stuck in a reality where I accused my husband of things that never happened, where even the sound of my granddaughter's dance felt like knives stabbing me in my head, and every day was just a battle to survive. I missed so many precious moments, my daughter's wedding, family events, everyday joys, and instead I found myself isolated and hurting the people that I loved. And worst of all, I lost touch with who I really was. And I tried to get better. I was on 8 different medications, Botox injections in my head, infusions, but it felt like no matter what I did, I was just slipping further away. And there were times when I thought I was just going to have to end my life, but fortunately I didn't do that. So after a 10-year struggle, my husband found Ambio through the Sean Ryan podcast. He tried numerous times to tell me to listen and reference the episodes where Sean Ryan would be interviewing different vets, and he'd say they had the same symptoms I had, they were on the same medications I was on, and it took some time, but in April in 2023, all of the medications that I was on weren't working anymore, and I was dealing with daily migraines, which caused issues with work and even just getting through the day. My thoughts were I had nothing to lose if I didn't try something. There was a good possibility that I wouldn't be here anymore. So then in July of 2023 is when everything changed. I knew nothing about Ibogaine, and I didn't want to do any research because at that point I knew that the torture that I called my life was going to get worse if I didn't try something new. I had to get off all the medication that I was on prior to going to Ambio, and that threw me back to almost the beginning of my injury. And I could handle nothing. I spiraled out of control on a daily basis, but I knew that it was necessary to do the medicine. The experience was challenging, to say the least. For 10 years, I struggled with flying and going across country from Pennsylvania to California. I thought literally my head was going to explode on the plane. But once I got to Ambio, I had a very difficult time participating in ceremonial events. I was probably one of the more difficult, I would say, patients that I've heard so far. And it's because my head hurt so bad. Even taking the Ibogaine was a tough road because of my hearing sensitivity. The music that they played was very difficult for me to handle. But the very good news is that I made it through the night and I woke up a completely different person. There was a shift in my world that I could not explain other than for the first time, I did not have a headache. And for the first time in 10 years, I wasn't drowning in negative thoughts. I felt happy. And it was not just the fleeting moments of happiness, it was a genuine happiness. And I left Ambio a different person and was so grateful how I felt. I just wanted to get home. And when I did get home, my husband started a list of changes that he saw in me. And within the first 24 hours of seeing me, the list was at like 20, literally 20. My life had completely transformed. And right now I'm off all medications. I walk with my head up. I look at people. I can fully engage in conversations and not have to excuse myself for being overwhelmed. For 10 years, I was not able to go shopping or even grocery shopping. I couldn't go into stores for longer than 10 minutes. However, now I'm able to go to the grocery store and stay as long as I want, which to this day still amazes me. It's, you know, who wants to go to the grocery store, but I do because I get amazed by it. I can go to busy places without earplugs. And I've even returned to enjoying simple things like attending my grandkids' birthday parties and my granddaughter's recital, which I used to have to leave after every time she danced just because the noise was too much for me. So right now I'm not just surviving anymore, but I'm living, which is amazing. The experience was so profound that my husband, my daughter, and I decided to start a nonprofit to help others access the ibogaine treatment because I know I'm not alone. And our organization is called Hope. It's helping other people prepare for excellence. There are countless people suffering, feeling trapped and hopeless, and we want to give them the chance to experience freedom and healing. I'm so grateful for this second chance at life. We call this version 3 of myself, and it's by far the best version. And if sharing my story can help even one person find their way to healing, then every struggle I endured was worth it. To those of you listening, if you or someone you love is going through something similar, please know that there's help and healing is possible. I'm living proof of it. You don't have to suffer forever. I found my way back, and now I want to help others do the same. So thank you so much for listening. I can tell you that prior to going to Ambio, I would have never been able to do just what I did right now. So thank you, Ambio. Thank you, Trevor. You saved my life, and I'll be forever grateful. So I look forward to seeing how many lives we can change together.
Thank you. You were, yeah, officially the most treatment resistant person we ever had. You did not want to be there.
No, I didn't.
And that's what makes it all the more sweet is like, this was not a placebo for you. You were not like, I'm just gonna make this happen. Hey, Chris. Yeah,
for this guy, I wouldn't have been able to do it. So
yeah. You've seen some pretty amazing transformations. Chris, this is Chris and Chris, husband and wife, different spellings.
Yeah, when she came home, I called Trevor, probably 24 hours later, and told him the list. My wife smiled. She was happy. She was loving. We went for ice cream. So something so simple. She went for ice cream, and a little kid was screaming at the top of their lungs, and it didn't affect her. Any other time we would have had to leave, and she would have been done for 24 hours. She just looked different. Her eyes looked different. She looked at people square in the eye. She wasn't looking at her feet all the time. Everything about her, it's the best thing that's ever happened to our life. You saved her life.
She did all the work reluctantly, but she did it. Well, thank you both so much. It's so good seeing you. And we're gonna get you on the podcast very soon as well. So thanks. Is Andrew here? Andrew tells me there he is. I see him. Andrew, you keep getting kicked off of Zoom apparently, but Andrew's just one more regular guy. And I really wanted Andrew on here because Andrew, to me, you are the most courageous person we've ever treated because, you know, between you and me and the perhaps thousands of people that are going to see this, I've never had anybody more scared to do the medicine. You were terrified. Man, it was incredible to see you but you did it nonetheless. So courage isn't, I feel great, let's do something. Courage is, I'm scared and I'm going to do it anyway. So you are officially, in my books, the most courageous person we've seen through here. So why don't you share a bit of your story, please?
Yeah,
wrap
thank you.
us up
And
here.
it seems to be kicking me off every 15 minutes, so I just want to hit the high points. I think mine started young with anxiety and probably around 5th grade, just terrible anxiety. I was a normal kid. I got into sports. I had a lot of head injuries, fell off a high ladder onto cement. My brother hit me in the head with a golf club. I think that's where all my problems really started. I got into barefoot water skiing. In football, I actually thought I was Rudy, the real Rudy. I just went hard all the time. The anxiety was crippling. I was taking antidepressants, Adderall, Ritalin, Xanax, lorazepam, testosterone, Ambien. Those didn't work. I ended up drinking a lot. I would probably 3-4 years ago, I would have to drink alcohol and take Xanax to just go to the store. It wasn't sustainable. And I talked to my wife and I was like, I need to go to Ambio. I saw the Sean Ryan and she said, face it, like, you don't have another choice. You have to go. So I did. The house is amazing. Everybody's amazing there. If you're considering going, do it. You have to do it. You have to do it. There's no choice. It works. My trips sucked, both of them, but it's worth it. I went twice. I mean, how bad could it be? Like if I went and did it again, like Trevor always says it's doable. It is doable. Life has changed so much. I have optimism, joy, worth, love. I have pride. It's a life worth living now. My life was not worth living before. I feel like time has slowed down. I can enjoy my life. I can enjoy my family. I can feel love. And I'm just so thankful.
Thank you, Andrew. You'll watch the recording of this. Incredible guy. Just like I say, he was so not into doing this, but he knew he needed to do it, and he did it, and his courage paid off, and he's living a different life because of that. So thank you, Andrew. There was just I'll open it up for a few more questions. If you've got any, you can go ahead and you can add them to the chat room. If you want to raise your hand, we could do that as well if you wanted to ask the question in person here. But there was a question about Parkinson's disease. The Parkinson's disease protocol is essentially microdosing. So it is ongoing microdosing of low levels of ibogaine for as long as you can, really. We've worked with many people with Parkinson's disease, and really the protocol is just taking a tiny bit of ibogaine every day. There's no psychoactive effects, but it does seem to help reduce Parkinson's symptoms quite a bit. The ideal protocol, I think, is to do the 5-day protocol and then go home with some microdoses and continue with microdosing for that. The question is microdosing for MS as well? Ultimately, again, the ideal protocol for MS is to come down, do the 5-day protocol with a large dose of medicine, and continuing with microdosing going forward. Tinnitus it's hit and miss with tinnitus. We've had some people that say the ringing in their ears, their tinnitus really does disappear. And unfortunately, it's not something we can tell everybody to expect, because a lot of people, the tinnitus does not really change. Andrew, I'm just going to throw you on really quick. Why don't you just wrap up your story there?
Where'd you lose me?
Just basically gratitude for coming down. I think you were pretty much done.
Yeah, I knew my 15 minutes was about up. Yeah, I'm just so thankful. My life was so changed. I have joy in my life. It really just gave me my life back. It's the guy, I'm the man, I'm the husband, I'm the dad that I want to be now. I spend time with my kids. I didn't even know how bad it was until I got home, and all those things. I didn't know how bad I really was until it was all gone and everything was quiet. I can remember the first time in the house sitting, and it wasn't like there was a zoo going on around me. Just constant distractions. Yeah, once I got home, I was just blown away and just spending time with my kids and my family. My wife noticed it, everyone noticed it. I felt like I had life back in me. Just
Beautiful.
so grateful for you and the whole team. Everything you hear about it is true. The food's awesome. Everything's awesome.
The food's awesome.
Yeah, Trevor, thank
Thanks,
you.
brother. Love
Thank
you,
you.
man. Great seeing
Love
your
you too.
face. Great seeing your face.
Yeah.
There was a question Mary had about my background. My background around this is essentially after 9/11, I just started looking for a way to make the world a better place. I focused on a neighborhood in Vancouver called the Downtown East Side. That turned into basically a 10-year networking and research project. Then ibogaine came on the radar as a way to potentially help, and I just followed that thread, and it's the best thing that ever happened to me. Nothing's really changed since this past February as far as the procedure. Thank you for the compliments. That's a great comment, Craig. I love Christina's story. It resonated. I have a chronic headache for 13 years, probably from concussion. I'm inspired by the story. However, I'm curious about the side effects of the headache. It worries me a little, possible that it will. It seems to do the opposite of that. Kaya. It's really worth a shot. I think if headaches are the issue, I think, you may experience pain during the actual ibogaine experience. That seems how ibogaine works sometimes with pain, is it gets more intense through the actual experience, but then tends to diminish after. Again, we can't guarantee anything, but I think it would be a good bet. Sugar addiction, for sure. That people end their sugar addiction all the time using ibogaine. Like I say, it's a very powerful negative pattern interrupter, whatever that is. Are people able to get right back to work, perform better? Yes, I would, the more space you can give on either end of it. I think if you probably don't want to finish here on a Friday, go back to work on Monday. Although people have, it's totally possible. I don't think it does awaken you to the point for most people where, you can't function. We have a joke around here. You never want to go full hippie. I think most people stay very normal through this process, and it just makes them better versions of themselves. Anyway, it is now 5:36 Pacific time. I'm very grateful that everybody has shown up here. I saw 100 people on at one point. We still have 78 of you. So thank you so much for showing up. Ambio.life is our website. There is a button there that says apply now if you're interested. As I said, and I surprised myself as that slide came up that said I was giving $1,000 off per treatment. I meant to edit that to $500, but I've screwed myself over basically. So if anybody does apply and mention the webinar on their application between now and October 29th or October 31st, if you book before October 21st, I will basically, if you're a civilian, you get the veterans rate. If you're a veteran or a first responder, we'll give you what we call the nonprofit rate of $58.50. So we would love to have you down here. If you have any questions, our staff is always available to answer. You can reach out through the website. I'm very easy to get a hold of. My email address is trevor@ambio.life. Very, very happy to have you all here. Thank you for showing up. And I wish you a very beautiful evening. Thanks so much for tuning in, everybody.